In this week's drive, we join Jordan as they get back on track, ride with the Big Bens, back in black, look at a little ugly truckling for young drivers, and see a world champ almost come undone. All this and more in this week's Drive. The Ferrari Formula One team held the first test session for the F2004, their challenger for the forthcoming season, at the private Fiorano circuit just across the road from the famous factory. Ferrari chief executive Luca de Montezemolo and sporting director Jean Todt were deep in conversation as world champion Michael Schumacher arrived for the test session. Schumacher and Ferrari were pushed to the limit in both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships last year, with both titles decided on the final day of the season. The Italian team was successful on both fronts, but the gap between Ferrari and their rivals has closed right up. The F2004, Ferrari's challenger for this season, was unveiled at the team's headquarters in Maranello recently, and this was its first test session. The car made a faster debut than any of its predecessors, completing a lap of Fiorano in a time of 56.8 seconds, which was 0.2 of a second faster than last season's car. The new design is considered a more conservative evolution in comparison with their main rivals at McLaren, Williams and Renault. Perhaps that's why technical director Ross Brawn is already working on upgrades for the new car. In pre-season tests, the Renaults have performed well, but reports of less than successful trials for the McLaren, the first of the new season's cars to get on track, have been dismissed by Ferrari teamsters. McLaren driver Kimi Raikkonen has suggested that his new car is not yet well integrated with its Mercedes-Benz engine. But Michael suggests that this is a smokescreen to give their rivals a false sense of security. He thinks the Finns' slow public times might have been set on brim-full fuel tanks. Schumacher won a record 6th driver's title last year, but his 4th championship for Ferrari was only sealed after he scraped an 8th place finish and a single point in the final race in Japan, where his main rival, Raikkonen, failed to win. Raikkonen finished just 2 points behind Schumacher, and with Williams driver Juan Pablo Montoya and his own brother Ralf Schumacher also in contention for much of the season, it's clear that Ferrari's easy domination of recent Formula One is over. Michael set a lap record of 56.279 seconds in the F2004 on the second day of the test, beating the absolute mark he set last March in the older car by a fraction of a second. Speaking of McLaren, they've been hard at work on their new car, but Kimi hasn't had much track time.
Actually, I had an operation on my hand, and it took most of the time to get that done and recover from that one. And then, of course, Christmas and New Year I spent with my family and just tried to relax. It seems to feel good. Good car straight away. Of course, there's still quite a bit of work to do before the start of the season, but it's good baseline, and it's very much stronger than the last year's car. No, we haven't won the championship yet, but they have lots of experience and they know what they do. The people are very good people working in here, and everybody wants to win, and we're pushing as hard as we can with Mercedes and McLaren, and hopefully we can do it.
The world's press have dubbed Kimi the Iceman, but he came within a whisker of winning the world title last year. His teammate is Scotsman David Coulthard in his last season with the team.
Obviously, we had the car out running in December, which in theory gives us a bit more time to get miles on the engine. Obviously, we've got the one engine rule for the Grand Prix weekend. It puts a lot of pressure on Mercedes to generate the power and get the reliability. And obviously, from our point of view, we're trying to make the car as fast and reliable as possible.
David refused to be drawn on how fast the new car is.
The reality of what lap time it will do will only really matter in terms of comparison to our main competitors. And from that, we can't judge until we get to Melbourne.
He admits the single-lap qualifying system was his weak point last year.
We don't really know how the new regulations are going to affect the weekend until we get to the Grand Prix, but in theory it makes Friday a much quieter day because there's no qualifying at all. Saturday we have 2 attempts within the space of an hour or so, so hopefully that'll work well for the team.
The Scotsman illustrated his new determination when he bettered his own winter lap record by 0.4 of a second in McLaren's private test session in Valencia. Despite his reservations about the new car, Raikkonen insists that solutions are on the way for the problems. One of the solutions is a rework of the Mercedes V10 engine.
Well, there were quite dramatic changes, I have to say. I mean, to double the lifetime of an engine is not an easy task. And, you know, you could use an engine for 400k last year, and it needs to do at least twice as much in this year. And I think that is quite a step. It's very remarkable that I think most of the engine manufacturers achieved to lose no power. To gain no weight or not a lot, and I would say we are amongst them. But again, we are not the guys making the noises. We want to be first on the racetrack and not first in publicity.
And does the architect of Mercedes Motorsport think the new McLaren can lift the title?
It's not an ugly car, it's a very beautiful car. And I learned that the chances for a beautiful car are very good to be quick and to win races.
For McLaren, playing second fiddle to Michael Schumacher and Ferrari is no longer an option. The waiting was finally over for the Jordan team's last-minute signing as the new Jordan Ford EJ14 had its maiden track outing with new driver Nick Heidfeld behind the wheel at a rain-swept Silverstone. Heidfeld was making his debut in yellow, having joined the team after being dropped by Sauber at the end of last season. He has swapped seats with Italian Giancarlo Fisichella, who's moved across to Sauber. Despite Fisichella winning the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix, Jordan suffered a dreadful season, scoring only 13 points to finish 9th in the Constructors' Championship. Despite this and a battle to obtain sponsorship, team boss Eddie Jordan is confident that 2004 will see an upturn in the team's fortunes.
Jordan has something to live up to. It's the only privateer team that has ever won Grand Prix. There's only 4 teams that have won multi-Grand Prix in the last 5 years. Jordan is one of those. So I would like to try and win again if it's possible. But, you know, we need a little bit of luck on our sides to win against the likes of McLaren and Williams and Ferrari. They're a formidable opposition.
Heidfeld took 12 points for Sauber in 2001, 7 in 2002 and 6 last year before being replaced. He was relieved when Jordan signed him up.
I feel very well inside. People are very nice. I think we're already working pretty well together. Tests in Barcelona and JWS were not too bad, and now we're in Silverstone. First time with a new car, and it's always something special to go with a new car.
In typical bleak English winter weather, team founder Eddie Jordan saw his latest investments, multi-million-dollar car and driver, together for the first time. Heidfeld had already tested twice for Jordan this year in Spain, and the results in the development car were encouraging.
It has been a difficult last couple of weeks and months for me, and obviously I'm very happy now being part of Formula 1 again, and especially going to Australia to the first race in a couple of weeks.
But Eddie performed a Lazarus-like trick to return from the dead, snaring several sponsors. Jordan received another boost with news that Benson and Hedges will continue their sponsorship for a 9th straight year. The team have battled financially in recent months, but maybe their luck will now start to change with the EJ14. In wet conditions, Heidfeld drove 37 laps around the British Grand Prix circuit across the road from the Jordan factory.
Well, I think the new car is a big step. We were pretty unhappy with the car, last year's car, towards certainly the latter half of it, and perhaps it didn't get the development that it probably deserved, but at the end of the day it wasn't really that quick enough, despite luckily enough winning in Brazil. But that apart, it was a disappointment. This is a very, very major step forward. Hopefully we've been able to catch up the really good guys, and time will tell.
Heidfeld's task in helping Jordan recover from their worst performance in a decade will be great, and he won't be drawn on how much progress can be made at this early stage. Heidfeld, aged 26, has yet to win a Grand Prix. The launch of the new AMG Mercedes C-Class for the DTM, or Deutsche Tourenwagen Meisterschaft, the German touring car championship, took place a week before the presentation of the modified street version. During 3 test days at the Barcelona track, the drivers covered a distance of approximately 1,000 kilometres, giving the car's manufacturers time to assess the power, speed and, most importantly, the reliability of the car. The AMG Mercedes C-Class is equipped with the same engine as last year's car, which will also be driven in this year's DTM Championship. The technicians say that they've improved the drivability of the 4-litre V8 engine, and they've also adjusted the chassis to the dimensions of a 4-door car, all of which adds up to a pretty good package for Mercedes, who knows just how important the DTM is to them.
We all race our new models, which shows you just how important DTM is for the manufacturers. Marketing-wise, I think it is a great step in the right direction.
Defending champion Bernd Schneider has won the title 4 times, but he'll be pushed by his teammates. Hollander Christian Albers won 4 races last year, but ultimately had to settle for the overall runners-up spot behind Schneider. 22-year-old Englishman Gary Paffett won the German Formula 3 championship in 2002, while much will be expected of the French Formula 1 veteran Jean Alesi. Even so, the team will be expecting a tough fight.
I'm very sure that this will be a very tough season, that everybody will be very close together, and that it will be a hard-fought championship.
There's a lot invested in both the new cars and 4 top-class drivers. They'll be up against rivals Opel and Audi in the upcoming season, and few would bet against Schneider and his teammates scoring more wins this year. The made-for-television NASCAR Shootout is an annual season-opening event for pole position winners from the previous season and former champions. The 19 drivers also get a head start on the rest of the field, trying to earn starting spots for the Daytona 500 by racing on the track. The other 26 drivers entered for the Daytona 500 would have to wait a week for their first practice session.
Talked about it earlier.
A 7-lap sprint at the end of the race was set up by a 13-minute red flag stoppage, which occurred when Jeremy Mayfield and Dave Blaney, running first and second at the time, collided when a following car got close enough to upset the airflow coming off Mayfield's car. Mayfield, who had taken only 2 tyres at his last pit stop, slid up into Blaney and both cars slammed into the concrete wall. Mayfield's car did huge damage to a metal gate in the wall, and officials stopped the race while vital repairs were made.
Into him he ran. He probably could have saved it if the 23 car had not been there. Right.
After the restart, Ryan Newman grabbed the lead for a lap, but lost it to Kevin Harvick, and Newman hit the wall on the final lap. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who won the race a year ago, came up 0.157 of a second, or about 2 car lengths, short of doing it again, as Dale Jarrett grabbed the lead on the final lap and sped to victory. Jarrett charged from 10th place in a 7-lap sprint, taking the lead on the last of 70 laps, holding off the favourite, Earnhardt. It was a dramatic start for the 1999 NASCAR champion, who suffered the worst season of his career in 2003. It was his 3rd shootout win. Final preparations are being made to the Bahrain International Circuit ahead of the Middle East's inaugural Grand Prix on April the 4th. From the air, it's clear that the $150 million track is almost ready for Formula 1, with the work ahead of schedule. The 5.475-kilometre circuit, designed by German track architect Hermann Tilke, combines modern architecture with traditional Arabian design. The grandstands are covered by Arabian-style tents, topped off with traditional wind towers to give a local feel to the venue. The people that helped instigate the first Grand Prix to be held in the Middle East have a lot of pride in the progress already made.
It means a lot. It's the largest event ever in the Middle East. Formula 1 is the 3rd largest sports event in the world, and it's just a great pleasure to host such an event here in Bahrain. I think everybody's excited about it, and the whole people, not just in Bahrain, but the whole people in the region, are looking forward for such an event.
The track itself is undulating, with a mix of slow, tight corners and long, fast straights. The layout is already getting approval from people with expert knowledge of what makes for a good racetrack, such as former racing driver Eddie Jordan.
It's always fascinating to have a new circuit on the calendar. Bahrain Of course, I've known the people there for a very long time, even back in 2002 when they were first toying with the idea, and then it fermented and became a reality. So I went out to have a look at what they're doing, and a circuit, I can promise you, is probably, for me, if I was a driver, it would be the circuit I want to drive on most. It looks absolutely amazing.
Thanks to the efforts of a workforce of over 2,800, only the final layers of tarmac and a few finishing touches are needed before Bahrain is ready for Formula One.
Ladies and gentlemen, we give you the Hummer H3T. Well, you know, the development of the Hummer brand has been absolutely brilliant, and it was really our desire to broaden the brand scope and to really develop a vehicle that appealed to a younger audience. I think to those who want to go off-road with it, it's got real extreme off-road capabilities, but I think for someone who lives in a more urban area that may never leave the city, it's just a cool truck.
The new Hummer is just a concept vehicle at this stage, but it offers some interesting features. For example, the pickup bed has side access doors with drop-down assist steps that can double as weather-tight storage compartments. In addition, the tailgate forms an unbroken load surface when it's down, a neat idea which should be standard on every truck. Descended from the original military all-terrain vehicle, this design exercise is distinctly civilian inside, boasting full instrumentation and even an altimeter, compass and inclinometer. Nike backpacks are built into the seatbacks and released with elastic straps. In fact, the dash may be a sign of things to come from car makers in the not-too-far-distant future. Satellite navigation, in-car entertainment, and a camera built into the bonnet to record your off-road trips onto DVD. Although currently only a concept, the H3T was built with production-type components, including chassis and suspension components borrowed from existing GM trucks. There's a drop-down rear window to allow open-air driving, and a large power-operated folding canvas sunroof to really feel the wind. The H3T is powered by a 350 horsepower turbocharged version of GM's inline 5-cylinder engine. The transmission is a heavy-duty electronic 4-speed. The trademark grille is a given, but integrated winch and hooks are a neat touch. Tucked out of sight, a winch like this is protected from impacts, and it'll be less of a hazard for pedestrians too. The Good Ideas department dreamed up these mirrors, complete with driving lights. Like the H1 truck, the H3T's cab and load bed are a single structure. All the lights use multiple LEDs instead of conventional bulbs. Like the front, the rear end has no protrusions to limit approach and departure angles.
It is smaller, it's lighter weight, it's more affordable as a design, and but in every other measurement, it is Hummer through and through.
The truck has a 3-meter wheelbase and is 1.9 meters wide. 19-inch wheels near the corners give a foot of ground clearance and 51-degree approach and 50-degree departure angles. The tyres are a result of brainstorming between Nike and GM, an effort to develop a tyre which would do for a vehicle what Nike's shoes do for a hiker. BF Goodrich built the tyres designed to perform in on- and off-road conditions. Although just a concept at this stage, most of the H3T came from the parts bins, and Hummer says it comes in petrol blue metallic and satin titanium alloy, making it seem very production ready. Just 1 year on from their debut in the MotoGP World Championship, Ducati return with a new, improved version of the Desmo Sedici, which they hope will break the dominance of the Honda RC211V. The new bike, the D16 GP4, was unveiled by riders Loris Capirossi and Troy Bayliss, with test rider Vittoriano Guareschi. More than 60% of the 915 major components that make up the bike are totally different and cannot be interchanged with the previous version. Although the bodywork looks similar, it's been redesigned to improve cooling while maintaining the bike's good aerodynamics. It's made in 4 pieces instead of 2 to improve access for the mechanics. A new front mudguard increases airflow to the radiator. The new fork keeps the stiffness of last year's bike but uses 42mm instead of 50mm forks, saving weight. The titanium exhaust system has been completely redesigned, as has the aluminium swing arm. It's lighter and stiffer than the previous version.
Well, the new bike especially it's a great bike. The looking is pretty good. It's much better compared to the last year bike, and we have a lot of improvement, a lot of evolution, and well, for sure this bike is much more competitive compared to last year, and we hope to do the first test, especially the first test we do next week in Malaysia. It's really important to understand where is our level.
Obviously, I've seen the new bike. It looks very good. Everyone will see it very shortly. But it's not just the looks. There's been a lot of other things going on with the bike, and we really think it's going to help us towards this year make a better result than last year.
With a race win and several podiums in their maiden year, the team are looking for a lot more this year. Catalan fans came out in force. Over 13,500 packed the Olympic Stadium. First on the course was one of the all-time greats, but the 6th round of the championship proved to be a disaster for Dougie Lampkin. The 5-time indoor world champion produced one of the worst qualifying laps of his entire career to finish in 5th place overall with a total of 19 penalties. He was out of the final, and not even his recent engagement could bring a smile to Lampkin's face. A 6th world title now looks remote. In contrast, Marc Friescher of Spain was on the comeback trail in the 6th of 12 rounds in the championship. After conceding just 15 points to finish 2nd after the qualification lap, Lampkin's Montesa HRC teammate took his first podium place of the 2004 indoor season, finishing as the overall runner-up in the final, having conceded 33 penalties. The fight for 2nd place in the 3-rider final was a thrilling affair as Honda rider Takahisa Fujinami of Japan battled with Friescher for that 2nd spot. He maintained his consistent form this year, making the final by finishing 3rd with 23 points after the qualification lap. He was neck and neck with Friescher on 33 in the final, but came 3rd after conceding more penalty points in the allotted time. However, there was going to be only one winner, and Adam Raga completed a popular hat-trick of wins in this event. After finishing the qualifying round in the lead with just 9 penalty points, the dominant Gas rider dropped only 2 points in the 9 sections of the final to claim a convincing victory, even if at one point he looked perilously like he was about to take a 5-metre swan dive. By the end, he had conceded just 12 penalty points as his 2 nearest rivals built up a total that was almost 3 times his score. The partisan crowd cheered Spaniard Raga all the way to victory, who seems to be getting into the Valentino Rossi style of celebrating a race win, although I'm sure his spotter was supposed to catch the bike. The defending world champion is a class apart this season, and he now holds a commanding 10-point lead over Lampkin as he leads the way with 54 points in the overall standings, while Fujinami now lies 3rd on 38. The Indoor World Championship now heads to Pesaro in Italy for round 7. So, whether you're defending your title, staying off the wall, or just wearing a red shirt, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.